Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the March 31st, 2021 meeting of the Rotary Club of Sebastopol Sunrise. Thank you, Lori Darling, for being our greeter this morning. Now I can't even talk. We were all greeted very cheerfully. Thank you. Even if you did set the alarm off when you came in the building.
Oh, it's awful.
So Wayne, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Please put your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, with liberty.
Thank you, Wayne. Chris or Kate, do you have a thought for us today? I know you're here. You were here.
I'm here.
Hey.
Okay, I always like this one because it gets me out of thinking about things too much. Here it goes. If the mind was so simple, we could figure it out. We would be so simple, we couldn't.
Yep. Very true. Very true. So I thought I'd bring this up because this came out, this popped up about Rotary. And I think it's something that we need to remember, think about, and broadcast. I know that Bill Sauber brought something to the Michael Fells and the Anti-Racism Task Force. And I just thought I'd bring this up just to reinforce what Rotary is.
Barbara,
Yes?
we will be discussing Bill's proposal at the community services meeting on Monday.
Perfect. Thank you. So, Joe.
So, Barbara, pretty nice out there. Pretty sunny, isn't it? Look at that. Oh, almost lost you. Sunny. So, with that said, how about a little You Are My Sunshine this morning?
Great minds think alike. Yay.
I want to hear you all.
Okay,
open the
but
windows up.
You have to unmute yourselves, folks, so we can all
Wake
sound
up,
bad together.
wake up the neighborhood. You know, let everybody know we're rummaging around early this morning. So here we go. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. Make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take the sunshine away. The other night, dear, as I lay sleeping, I dreamed I held you in my arms. And I awoke, dear, I was mistaken. And I hung my head and cried. One more time. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. To make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away.
Motley as always. Yay! Do we have any cyber Rotarians? I haven't seen anybody, but I know we have a lot of cyber guests, and we'll get to all of our guests in a minute as soon as the guest of honor comes, our student of the month, which I haven't seen him come yet. So wave to your friends. And I will do our mute all. And just remember, unmute yourself. Da, da. And I don't see him, David, here yet, right?
I don't see him. Maybe Kimberly could check. I saw Kimberly.
Yeah, Kimberly and Allie are here and Bruce is here. So we've got everybody but the guest of honor.
Kimberly's been trying to text and call and possibly wake him up. So we're trying. We're trying on our end.
Yes, to be. How old is he? 16, 17, 18?
He's a senior.
Yeah. He may have just
Ally,
graduated yesterday.
Allie, I'm very happy that we're going to start opening up the schools.
We are
Aren't you?
happy. Yes.
Yeah.
We open up April 12th.
Good.
Nice.
Yeah.
And okay, so while we're on the subject, Ally, is it going to be partial, hybrid?
It's going to be hybrid, but we can actually have all of the kids back at the same time. The state, was probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, did say though that kids can only be a part of 3 cohorts per week. So that means that kids could not attend 4 classes every single day. So we have to do 2 classes per day in person, then 2 online. Otherwise we break the rule of too many cohorts. But we all like to be back. We don't want, we like rules. We're rule followers.
Rules give structure.
Yes, exactly.
So, okay, well, when David pops up, let me know and we'll go back and honor him appropriately. In the meantime, we have a couple of birthdays. Charlie, are you with us, Charlie? I didn't see him, but I know Nancy's with us. Nancy Wilson. Where'd she pop off to?
Unmute. Hi.
Hi, happy birthday.
I know. Quarantined again. Birthday, Easter. Bleh.
Oh,
Well, there's always next year.
Exactly.
Yes. So no big party this year for your birthday?
Or Easter. No.
No. But are you going to get birthday cake from somebody?
Damn right. Chocolate. Of
Chocolate.
course.
Of course. Chocolate with more
That's right.
chocolate. And chocolate ice cream. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
And next year will be the big party.
Apparently, because if I'm, let's see, 54 this year, then the next year I'll be 55.
It'll be the speed limit. The old speed limit. Okay.
Double nickels.
Double nickels. Okay, no anniversaries, but we have a couple of Rotary anniversaries. Lori, darling.
Yes, April the 2nd. At least I
April the
didn't do it on April the 1st. I think that was 2008 in Helene's year.
Aha.
And time goes by super, super quick.
Yes, it
And
does.
I've had so many good memories. And I think the best was my year as president and being able to learn about everybody and stump everybody on front and center.
You betcha. You betcha. Well, welcome. Thank you. And hope you have many more Rotary anniversaries. Now, Jerry, now you need to, there you go. You have your anniversary on April 5th.
Yeah. Gosh, I have so many Rotary memories. I mean, one thing I treasure most is just being around all of you. So Rotary family, and it's wonderful. You know, I had so many experiences that I never would have been able to have if it hadn't been for Rotary. So thank you all.
Well, we're glad you're here, Jerry. Let's see, I see Joe Maloney's with us, but I still don't see our student. So what's going on? Well, Kathy Rogers. Is Kathy with us this morning? I haven't seen her. First Friday, this Friday, Kathy will be hosting, and come and join us. I'll send the Zoom link out tomorrow to everybody. April 5th, community service. What's new on here? Michael McLaughlin. Michael?
Yeah.
April 21st?
5:30 on April 5th will be a community service meeting, and we'll be discussing the proposal that Bill Saba has brought forth, and so everybody is encouraged to attend. The link should be on the website.
Okay, and then on the 21st?
On the 21st, we are going back to the Redwood Empire Food Bank from 1 to 4 o'clock. We need 7 or 8 people, so we'll get the link out on that as soon as she sends it to me, and we can sign up for that.
And it's a lot of fun. It really is. Okay, now I see Kathy Rogers. Unmute yourself. First Friday, this Friday.
I'll be there. I'll be there early.
Kathy's hosting. I won't be able to be there because I've got out of town family. My daughter's coming. Yay!
Yay!
And Angie, my daughter from another family, and her 2 boys will be here. So we're gonna have a house full for the weekend, and it's so nice. Like Diana said, it's so nice to be able to get back and see people in person. So everything else is pretty much what it was. If you want to attend a project fair on Zoom, the East Africa Project Fair is April 21st to 24th. Let me know if you want that information. And of course, the District Trading Assembly is the 17th. So, and we still don't have our student, do we?
No.
Nope. Well, okay, so now we're at the point for weekly announcements, and quite frankly, I don't have a lot. Oh, fundraising. Michael Cook, did you want to say anything about the upcoming auction?
Well, yes. So the date is now on, when is it? It's May 2nd. We moved it to avoid a clash with the Noon Club, which is holding an event that ends on May 1st. So May 2nd is when the auction opens officially. We have some great items coming in. Thank you. We need more, especially the higher ticket items. Linton offered a web maintenance package. That's going to be one of the big ones for us. And I think if you can think of something, an experience or something you would like to host, that would be great. And we'll see how it goes. So we're looking forward to that. We'll have a promotion plan that's just kind of coming into place, working closely with David Mark Raymond on that. David, do you have anything to add?
Michael, this is Wayne. I have something. I see Joe is here. Joe is donating some apple trees for auction. So maybe Joe, you could tell us what we're getting. I've forgotten already. I know there's a Gravenstein, but there's another 1 or 2 apple trees that you're going to give us.
Yeah, we can have a couple Gravensteins, and there's a nice pink lady, and I think that there's a pink pearl. The pink pearl has that nice kind of pink flesh when you bite inside it. It's kind of a unique apple that arrives right around the time of the Gravenstein or shortly after. And the pink lady is a late variety that does well in some of the drier climates. And I'm sure I can find 1 or 2 others that if people are into it. We have some Jonagolds and Winterstein, which is a cross between a Gravenstein and I can't remember what else it was crossed with. But it's a really the plant itself has good structure to it. So, but we also do have some natives, some California buckeye that are drought tolerant and have some good structure to them, ready to go in the ground. So those are really good landscape plants too.
Oh, great. We could use a few pictures, images to use.
Okay.
I've got something I'll send, but I'll get with Joe. We'll get
okay, great.
Great. And if people want to go the route of the thornless blackberry, we've got some good ones there too. Those are fantastic berries, and you don't get stuck with the thorns.
Oh, nice. Seems unnatural, Joe.
Yeah.
That's great.
Berries too. So
A lot of gardening going on out there, so this should hit the spot with some folks.
Yep. So David, are you going to be sending us flyers and stuff that we can then send out to
Yes.
our friends and family and anybody we know who might want to help us?
I hope so. And that's actually what I'd like to talk about. Need a little help in those departments because I can write good ad copy, but I'm not a flyer maker. So if there is somebody in the club who can help us in the following ways, these would be great. One is kind of putting that flyer into shape. We know what we want to put on it, but how, constructing that flyer, the signs for the entry to town, would be really helpful. And then if you are good, so in addition to what Michael Cook was talking about, going out and getting auction items, there's little sense in having an auction if people don't come to it. So we can work on the advertising, but I need help with database because that is not something I do well. I had just figured out how to put V cards into Google Docs. Then Susan called me to dinner, and I've not been able to fix it ever since and do more. I'm ready to go. It's just I don't know how to do it. So if there's somebody who can lean in and help with that, that would really be helpful right now. I almost cried when I came back and went, I can't do this. I can't do it anymore. And that was it for the night.
David, I'll do the flyer for you.
Yeah, Terry, Kelly,
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you very much. You are great at that. That's fabulous.
Good, I volunteered you like 6 weeks ago, Terry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it has to come from him.
Yeah, it wasn't in a volunteering
He
mood.
can reach out too.
He just did.
That's
Yes,
right.
Thank you, Terry.
We've got
This is
links for
fabulous.
donation and for the volunteer, for the donation and for the auction site, Terry.
Great.
Well, thank you. Nancy Wilson. What are you making?
I can't sit still. I'm making a pound cake.
And you won't
Love
be
it.
there. That's not fair.
That's right.
So,
Wheel?
okay.
Make a 2-pound cake and invite us.
1 pound for you, 1 pound for me.
Another pound for COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Get some strawberries to put on that pound cake and some whipping cream. That would be yummy.
Yeah, really. Okay, so our student is not coming. Is that what I'm seeing?
That's what
Hey,
you're saying.
Barbara,
Yeah?
I thought maybe we could just give everybody a save the date for the Adopt a Highway.
Okay, yep.
Me and Bill were talking about that yesterday, and let's see, I'm going to get on my calendar because I already forgot the date.
22nd of April.
Yeah. That's
April 24th.
22nd. Now that Earth Day is actually a Thursday.
Saturday,
So,
Saturday, April 24th.
yeah. So why don't you guys figure that out and let me know and I'll fix it on the calendar.
So it's the 24th, right?
Saturday, April 24th. And we're going to meet at the high school.
Okay.
What time?
9
Okay.
9 to 11, maybe a little later. It'll be our first time, so it might be a learning experience.
Yeah, I think.
And
Actually,
and we're looking at trying to get at least 10 people out would be nice. I think that's where that would be the maximum too, because we want to be safe. But I think we can do 10 people out that day.
right. So Allie, let's see, Allie, are you still with us?
I think she jumped off because they have some kind of meeting going on.
Okay, then.
Yeah, hi Barbara. Allie had to jump into another meeting, but
Oh,
I
okay.
can't get a hold of David. I'm so sorry.
Okay, well, poop. Then we'll just have to try again next week.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
well,
Thank you so
and
much.
thank you everybody from Laguna who popped into our meeting anyway.
Thank
So,
you.
You're welcome. Okay, so that, well, that's a bummer. Michael Fells.
Yeah, so next week we have a good speaker, as we will today. It's David, I'm sorry, I don't know why it says Daniel, but it's David Gill,
Okay.
who is the coordinator of the Sebastopol Area Time Bank. David is a local guy, and the Sebastopol Area Time Bank is a nonprofit. It's free to all and a very, very good organization. It allows members to offer services to and request services from our local time bank community. So join us and learn what it's all about.
Super, thank you. Diana Curtis. Where'd you go, Diana?
Okay, I'm here. I just had to unmute so so you could hear me. Yeah, talk a minute about Rotary Direct. Rotary Direct is a way of giving to our Rotary Foundation, and it's very easy to get into. All you have to do is type in search for My Rotary, and up in the right-hand corner, there comes up My Rotary and a place that says donate, and you can click on donate and give to the Rotary Foundation. And there's 4 different ways that you can give through Rotary Direct. You can do it online, you can do it by mail, you can do it by phone, you can call the Rotary Support Center, and you could do it by fax. So I'll get that information out emailed to you. There is a minimum contribution of $10. And as I did, it's very easy to sign up for recurring giving. You can do it by month or 4 times a year or annually, however you please. And it's just a wonderful way to give to the Rotary Foundation with, now I don't even have to think about it. It just happens. And it's just so much good that our foundation does for the world, and be part of it. Go in to become, well, you can sign up to be online with My Rotary. That's important too. That is part of it. I have been on there for number of years. And if you aren't on the My Rotary Foundation, my tongue's in front of my eye teeth, can't see what I'm saying. If you go into My Rotary, you can find just a myriad of things that Rotary is doing and different ways, in this case, different ways to give and your choices of ways of where your money is going to go. You have a lot of latitude there. So anyway, go into My Rotary, go to the right-hand upper corner and click on donate. Please give that a try and you'll see how easy it is to give to Rotary and the Rotary Foundation. And I want to thank you all for your generosity. It's a great club.
Barbara?
Yes.
The same can be said for our own foundation. If you go to the top of our webpage, there's a donate button, and you can donate to our own community foundation. So as those stimulus checks are coming in, you might want to give that some consideration.
Thank you. Yep, that's always a reminder. Rotary Direct, you know, when we were having our regular weekly meetings, we did that small change, big difference. And we haven't been able to do that, but this is another easy peasy way to do it. Just go in and set something up. You know, a lot of people were doing $3 or $5 a week, multiply that by 4.3 and come up with a monthly number and set it up, and it's automatic and it's painless, and support the foundation. So thank you. So we can review, quite frankly, it was a very, very slow news week. So Michael Phelps, who was lucky number 22 for the lotto ticket.
Well, lucky number 22 is lucky Michael McLaughlin.
Wahoo! So, Michael, I will scratch this and let you know if you're a big winner, but don't hold your breath.
I'm not.
So, Happy Books, like I said, this was a very slow news week, and we've got a few minutes. Who has Happy Bucks? Who has something they're happy about? Diana?
Yes, I already told you how happy I was to get together with my family, and I'll give $50 Happy Bucks to the Rotary Club. Thank you so much. It was just delightful.
Right. And I'll do Happy Bucks because my daughter's coming for a week. She's a teacher, so now she's had both her shots. And Angie and her boys, Angie is our daughter from another family, and my daughter's best friend will be here over the weekend for Easter with her two boys. And Angie's had, because she works at a school also, she's had her 2 shots. So all I can say is, wahoo, we're all kind of getting back to normal with people getting their shots. Normal, sort of. You know, we still have to be careful. Anybody else happy? Before we go into we can start our program a few minutes early, but if anybody else has happy.
I've got one.
Okay, Linton.
I saw my son play baseball live for the first time in a year yesterday.
Fabulous.
After he told me a couple of weeks ago that his senior year was stolen from him. He was pretty sad about it.
Yeah.
But he did really well, pitching and catching. And $20.
Super, thank you. Now remember, you can either mail a check to the club P.O. Box 2481 Sebastopol, or you can go on the donate online. Remembering, if you do the donate online, there is a credit card fee. Anybody else? Okay. And Jerry's put the address in the chat. Well, then.
No.
Nope. Oh, crap. I thought
No,
I
wrong
changed
program.
that. Sorry. I'll stop sharing. Okay, Michael Fells,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and introduce Neil
Sorry
Goodman.
about
who is
that.
That's all right. That was last week. But
That was last week.
so, yeah, this is a real pleasure to introduce Dr. Neil Goodman, who is the CEO of Global Dynamics Incorporated. Global Dynamics, and Neil is an internationally recognized authority on cross-cultural competence, global mindset, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. He's a leader in diversity, equity, and inclusion training since 1963. His article, The Best Practices in Unconscious Bias Training, ranks #1 on Google. Organizations and publications from around the world seek Dr. Goodman's advice on creating globally inclusive organizations. He's received the Outstanding Senior Interculturalist Lifetime Achievement Award from CTAR, which is the Society of International Education, Training, and Research. Neil is a professor emeritus from St. Peter's University in New Jersey and a global citizen. Most importantly, Neil has been my good friend since we met at a conference in Iowa about 44 years ago. Neil is most proud of his 2 daughters, his grandchildren, and now it's a pleasure to welcome my very good friend, Dr. Neil Goodman.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm honored to be able to speak with you. I'm going to try to share my screen now.
Wait, half a second. There you go.
Let me share my
Now you
screen.
do it.
Let me know when it's okay.
It's okay.
Okay. Let's get this up and running. Okay.
There.
Here we go.
There we go.
We're getting there.
Yep.
From the beginning. There you go. Can you see that all okay?
Yep. Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Let's hope it stays that way. Anyway, I really am excited about doing this, and I want to let you know that I and my whole team of specialists are available to you at any time if you have any questions whatsoever relating to diversity or intercultural relations. I'm particularly excited about speaking with you. Just a quick story. As Michael mentioned, I was a professor for about 35 years, and my very, very best student ever was a young lady. I met her. She was freshman in my class, and she was the daughter of Italian immigrants, first in her family to go to college. And I saw her intellect and her skills immediately, and I tried to encourage her to study overseas, but she didn't have much resources. So fortunately, she was able to get a Rotary scholarship to study in Italy, of all places, because that's where her parents were from, and she had never been there. She went to Italy, came back, went to SAIS, which was the school at Johns Hopkins, became a diplomat, and actually for a while was the head diplomat in Rome. And so when she was in charge of the U.S. Embassy in Rome, to the Vatican, she invited her parents over, and they got to stay in the U.S. Embassy in the Vatican, being Italian immigrants to the U.S. She now works for the State Department. She's a senior ambassador in charge of humanitarian aid. So thank you for helping me help her. It was a great story. We're going to talk about unconscious bias today. Something I've been talking about for a lot of years, but it's all about you and what you and each of us can do to reduce the biases that we have. It's not easy, and we'll talk a little bit about why we have them, etc. But this is a quick question. Some of you may have seen this before. A father and his son are in a car accident. The father dies at the scene, and the son is badly injured. Rushed to the hospital. In the operating room, the surgeon looks at the boy and says, "I can't operate on this boy. He's my son." Now, how can this be?
It's the mother who's the doctor.
Right? And what else? They could be in a same-sex marriage. Okay, so even our answers change over time, as you can see. So biases are always going to be with us. I don't want to say we're going to end biases. Biases are part of being human. So two quick questions. Are biases always negative and have negative consequences? And does having a bias make you a bad person? And of course, the answer to both is no. I mean, you're not a bad person having a bias. If you're human, you have biases. And our biases sometimes can have very positive consequences. I could meet you, never known you, but I find out that you went to the same college as I did, and all of a sudden I think very positively about you. That's still a bias. So your biases can be positive, they can be negative, and they don't make you a bad person at all. But what I want to think about is what might be going on that we in our communities and in our lives where we might experience biases. And again, I'd say almost anywhere. I'd like to just think about that. I was speaking with Mike and said, how is this relevant? And the real question is, in our own communities, in our own daily lives, how do we encounter bias? How do we engage in it? It can be very small things. It can be what we call micro messages, how we look at people. Do we look at people when they're talking to us, or are we staring at our phone? These are little kind of biases. Men tend to stare at their phones when they're talking to women more than women stare at their phones when they talk to men. Men interrupt women more than women interrupt men. Small little things that can be biases, but we're not aware of them. And cashiers in a school cafeteria who would tend to put change in the white student's hands, but if it was a black student, they'd put the change on the tray. They didn't even know they were doing this. Okay, again, it's unconscious. But the idea is to become aware of our biases so we can do something about that. So in virtually every day, just this weekend, I had a chance to go up to Washington and visit my daughter, and I was staying at a hotel, and I was looking for a tray to put some food on that to bring up to the room, and I didn't know where to go, and there happened to be a black gentleman there, sitting there, and I said, oh, maybe he's working here. So I asked him, do you know where they keep the trays? And then again, that was my bias. Would I have asked the same person if they were white? I don't know. We don't know where our biases are coming from, but they're there all the time. We all have them, and they're deeply embedded in our brains. So again, look at this picture, and what's the first thing to come to mind? Look at this picture coming up, and what comes to mind? Okay, so in the first picture, it's Ronald Irvin McNair. Ronald was a NASA astronaut. He unfortunately was in the shuttle Challenger when it exploded. But you know, he's a father, husband, astronaut, PhD. But if all you saw was that first picture, you might not know, who he is or what he is, because we're making quick snap judgments. Okay, what do you think about this person? Well, okay, his name is John Fetterman, father, husband. He's mayor of Braddock, Pennsylvania, and just recently, I think, elected to a higher office. So what I'm saying is that when we encounter people, we react to them sometimes by relying on our unconscious biases. Now, our biases come from our brain. Our brain operates to make quick decisions. Humanity is about 300,000 years old. During most of our social evolution, we had to deal with the enemy, the people who might attack us. And so our brain was generating the ability to think about fear and threat. So our brains are wired for threat. The part of the brain that's wired for threat is the amygdala, and that's been part of the brain for a very, very long time. The prefrontal cortex, which evolved later, is the part that allows us to think about thinking. And so it allows us to consider things, but that evolved later. So here's what happens. If you take a person and you put them into an MRI machine, do a brain scan, and you show them a photo of somebody who looks like them, the part of the brain that lights up is the part of the brain that's associated with family, with affinity. So somebody who looks like them, they actually create oxytocin, which is the love hormone. If you hug somebody, hug your partner 5-6 times a day, you'll create oxytocin. Again, it's a love hormone. It's a hormone between the mother and the child. And people who see people like themselves, they produce some oxytocin. On the other hand, if they're shown a picture of somebody who's different from them, the other part of the brain lights up, the amygdala, and that produces cortisol and adrenaline, the fear. So again, it's not something you have total control over. Your brain sort of captures that image, captures the person, and then makes a decision or captures the situation. Biases don't have to be about people. They can be about conditions, about cities, about anything really. But the brain really works to function as a prediction machine, because we have to make, again, our brains were set up to make very quick decisions and find the path of least resistance. The path of least resistance is our bias. Okay, so how do we attack that? How do we deal with that? Well, I'll give you an example, mitigating biases. Not too long ago, orchestra leaders who were almost always male believed that the French horn was too heavy for a woman to hold. It was too heavy of an instrument. And of course, there was a bias there. And so to intervene with that, most orchestras now conduct their auditions behind curtains. So you can't tell if the person who's auditioning is a male or female, what race they are, how old they are. You have to make a decision based on their competence only. And ever since they started doing that, there's been a 45% increase in the number of women selected to Philharmonic orchestras, including women who play the French horn, obviously. So those who did the selection and tended to select all males, they didn't realize that they were biased. They didn't, if you asked them, are you biased? They'd say no. They had a blind spot, Okay, the blind spot, just like in a car, the part you can't see. They had a blind spot, not realizing what they were doing. But once they put people behind the curtain, then all of a sudden that blind spot disappeared. And so we can mitigate the bias. In many organizations today, they're now taking names off of resumes, not just names, but sometimes the social activities of the students, so that when they consider somebody, they know that they're not being biased by by race, by gender, by activities. Again, some people may be biased against somebody because of the kinds of activities they were part of. So again, is the student qualified or not? That's really the question. So today we understand that biases are there. They're unconscious. They're largely unintentional, and they influence our actions every day without us realizing it. Okay, these are just mental shortcuts to help us make inaccurate assumptions about people, but that influences the way we treat people and the decisions we make about them. And it impacts all our interactions at home, in school, in business, whatever, socially. Whenever we encounter people, biases are going to be there because we've been brought up in a society that teaches us biases. We can't, for example, I applaud you for your initiative, anti-racism initiative. But if you do an analysis of your own biases, and there are places you can go to do that. Harvard University has an implicit bias test you may be aware of. You're going to find all of you have some racism because you're raised in a racist culture. Even Black people have racism in them because, again, they're making judgments about people based on how the society has taught them to view themselves. One of the most profound books I ever read was the autobiography of Malcolm X, where he talks about how his own bias against himself and how he looked and his color and his hair was something that he was taught by the white society. So all of us have biases, and the trick here is to learn how to control your biases. One other quick example, while less than 4% of all American men are over 6 feet 2 inches tall, more than 36% of all corporate CEOs, 36%, are over 6 feet 2 inches tall. Now, do you think that the hiring committee said, oh, let's go hire a tall person? No, that's the bias that's built into our society. It's estimated that every inch of height for men and women is worth about $750 a year. Okay, so are you better because you're taller or not? No, but you've got an unfair advantage you didn't realize you had. Okay, and this is what it's really all about. And so I don't want to, I could talk for hours about this, but I really wanted to get to the Q&A part of this as early as possible, because I'm sure some of you have questions about unconscious bias and how it may play out. So I'm at your disposal. I'd love to answer any questions you might have.
Super, thank you.
I hope that was helpful.
Yes, thank you. Okay, questions, folks?
Well, I have one. If I've heard a talk where they said, don't be a bystander, be an upstander. And if you're in a group and somebody's apparently biased in how they're treating someone else, how do you intervene without making starting a riot or something?
Yeah, well, you can see the unfortunate situation listening to the testimony of the trial right now. Look, the main thing is it depends on the nature of the people who are in the interaction. But if somebody says something about a particular group, you can always ask, well, have people in your group ever done that too? Have you ever seen that done by others? Or why do you think that? Where do you come to that conclusion? It's perfectly okay to be, again, not just a bystander, but an upstander, to get involved and say, well, I think, could you explain a little more what you're trying to say here? Now, one other side to that, which is every one of us will say something that's biased at one time or another. Okay. And what we have to do is, if we catch ourselves doing that, so we have to stop and ask to be forgiven. And sometimes people will point that out to us. So, I've encountered situations where somebody has said something very biased to me without realizing it. And it was a particular group that I belonged to. And since I was going to be meeting the person the next day, and this was a person who was hiring me to do programs for their company, I wanted to be very judicious about how I approached it. But I went to him in the morning. I said, look, I need to speak to you about this. This guy was very smart. He was a graduate of West Point. And I said, look, this is what you had said to me. And I realized, you don't know what it means. What he had done, we were doing a contract for the next year's training programs. And he said, I want you to give me a good price and don't Jew me down. Well, I found that a little offensive. And so we sat down and we talked about where does that reputation come from? Where does that stereotype come from? And he couldn't be more gracious and appreciative of the fact that I pointed out the bias that he had. He didn't realize that this is a common phrase that he learned growing up. And so we're all going to say that. Every time I do a program, I always begin it by saying, I may say something that is going to offend somebody here. Either bring it up to me immediately or speak to me after the presentation, because it's inevitable. We don't know what's going on in other people's minds. Anyway, so I hope that answered. You should definitely try to intervene and support the person or the group that's being biased against. Again, we do our best.
Judy Rice, you raised your hand. So Judy.
You're muted. You're muted, Judy. We can't hear you.
Judy?
Judy.
You're muted.
She's working on it.
Oh, okay.
She's working
I
on
got
it.
Okay, how's that?
Okay,
Perfect.
now we got you.
All right, thank you. My computer was not cooperating. Neil, does research support that all bias is socially induced, that we learn it, or does it suggest that we may be born with some forms of bias?
We're not born with bias. At least, the research wouldn't indicate that any more than you're born speaking English or Swahili, but your brain is, again, set up so that you're going to be affiliated with the people who raise you, with the people who are like you. And so your brain is, again, kind of automatically going to feel close to those who have raised you, who are like you, and who give you your identity. I mean, your society gives you your identity, whether it's race, religion, gender, whatever it's not, they don't give you gender, but they tell you what you're supposed to think about a gender. And so it's all socially constructed. So, at the end of the day, I remember one of the programs on Twilight Zone where they were showing an operation on a person's face and they're disfigured. You remember that one, right? It's very memorable.
Good one.
And after the operation's over and they take off the wrapping and you see, the person looks absolutely beautiful, but all the doctors and everyone look really ugly. Again, that's the social, we call it the social construction of reality.
Thank you.
Nick, you have your hand up?
I do. Thank you for your presentation. I recently read a book called The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt. And I think that you may want to go back and review that if you hadn't seen it, because there are contributions that are part nature as well as a lot of nurture in forming biases. And so the research shows that I believe that there are contributions to bias that are natural, in fact, that come from back that 300,000 years ago. So it is largely nurture, but still some nature contribution to bias.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that. The Righteous Mind, is that
The
correct?
Righteous Mind, Jonathan Haidt, H-A-I-D-T.
Thank you very much. Always learning, always learning. Appreciate it. Other questions, comments, please.
Yes. Raise my hand here.
Oh, we have 3 participants who've raised their hands. Who do we have? Oh, we have Judy, Nick, Michael Fells.
Yeah. So Neil, you know, right now we're going through a very tumultuous time with regard to race in this country. And in some ways it's long, long overdue. But with regard to Asian Americans and the attacks that have been made on them recently, can you speak to any of the ways that anti-Asian bias has been built into our society? Can you point out some of the ways that we're subjected to those biases coming at us externally through whether it be media or politics or culture generally?
Yeah, and again, obviously it is, you know, part of, again, our society, how Asians were treated when they first came here. I mean, they clearly were second-class citizens, could not own property, you know, and so, and then of course there was the Asian Exclusion Act, and then the imprisonment of internment of Japanese Americans. It's interesting. I've lived in Hawaii, and think about this. In California, Japanese Americans were all put into internment camps. In Hawaii, not a single Japanese American was put into an internment camp. And Hawaii had, you know, Pearl Harbor. Why not? Because the person in charge of the FBI bureau in Hawaii knew and worked with these Japanese Americans and knew that they were no threat to America. And so, you know, where was the bias? I took white teachers to Hawaii to talk about bias, because in Hawaii, whites are generally second-class citizens, and Asians are considered smarter, more disciplined. My wife wanted to go to look at a school with her friend. Her friend was Japanese American. They looked at a Montessori school, and her friend said, "I wouldn't send my children there." And she said, "Why?" He goes, "Too many howlies." You know, it was a derogatory word for white people. But the idea is, you know, there's too many white children. They don't know discipline. They don't know respect. They're going to be, they're going to interrupt the education process. I'd much rather school with more Asians in it. So, you know, obviously the politics has a lot to do with it. I don't think we've been going through any of this had it not been for all the unfortunate references about the virus. So, you know, it brings out sometimes the worst in us if we're vulnerable to being biased. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. No, thank you. Yes, it seems pretty pervasive in all aspects of our culture, doesn't it? I mean, from films and television and all over. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, if you think about, again, given my age, you know, everything that I was raised at in thinking about Asians was always negative.
Yes.
It was always the kung fu, you know, mustache and dangerous people. And, you know, so you learn to be fearful of them. But, you know, generally speaking, if it wasn't for the last, you know, 4 years, Asians are generally seen as the model minority. Their income is greater than any other group in America, including whites. And so, you know, you have that situation. And then you also have the situation where many Asians who've immigrated to America come here based on money that was collected by their families. so they can come to America, start a business, send the money back to Asia to bring more of their families in. And in some communities, that's seen as biased because they're not hiring local people to work in the stores. They're only hiring their relatives because they've been sent there by their relatives to make money to bring more relatives to America. So then again, that's been the cause of a lot of strife, sometimes between the Black community and the Asian community. In fact, it was a simulation called Grocery Store that was created by one of the people who was incarcerated in Iraq, an American diplomat. And he created this activity. His name was David Kennedy, and he was actually part of the Kennedy family. Anyway, I could talk on forever about these things. So
Okay.
more questions, please.
Yeah, one more question.
Yep.
I'll go. So I have a 7-year-old nephew, and usually I ask him what he's learning in school. Sometimes it's nothing, sometimes it's multiplication. But this most recent time I asked him, he said he was learning about how badly we treated different people over time. And he's 7. So the education on bias seems to be working itself into early education, which I find very hopeful. Can you tell us a little bit about what you know about the education process with kids?
You know, in the U.S., you know, the education systems are controlled by local municipalities and by states. And so it really is up to the school administration to support that and to encourage it. And obviously there's much more attention to it today, but you know, you have school districts which still use history books that are very biased. If you look at almost any map in a US school, you're going to find that the equator is 2/3 of the way down, which makes the Northern Hemisphere look a lot larger, which makes, you know, again,
Interesting.
bias right there, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, I mean, I can say when I was in high school and I tried to get the principal to have a program about understanding one another, I would, you know, would say, you know, anti-bias program. He wouldn't allow me. And then I said, well, would you let me at least give a little opening comment? And he said, sure, but he wanted to see it first. I showed him what I wrote, and he threatened to suspend me from school. And my mother had to come in and you know, argue with him and threaten to get the entire Veterans Associations to protest what he was trying to do by suspending me. So yeah, you have racist teachers just as you have teachers that are anti-racist. So it's a school by school situation. It is promising. Obviously, there's a lot of curricula out there that teachers can go to now. A lot of films, videos that can be used. So again, in your own communities, I would encourage you to, you know, to make sure that that's being done.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Goodman. Really interesting. It brought up a lot of questions. And I think one of the, if you want to call it intentional biases, was the recent picture of the governor of Georgia signing the voting restricting act, sitting at his desk with a bunch of white men, but secondly, with a picture of a large plantation behind him. You know, that's not unconscious bias, that is overt bias. And
oh yeah, I mean, again, you can use all kinds of imagery and again, these subtle, people know what those tips are. I mean, they know what what the imagery is about.
Right.
But nobody can accuse them of being biased because, oh, that was just a picture of a famous plantation. You know,
yeah,
we know what
I
it's
know.
about.
It's just power. But I do have to say, to say one thing. Growing up, I was always jealous of the Jewish kids because they got gifts every day of Hanukkah.
Yeah, that was again one of the few advantages that came with it. I've had it both ways. I have to tell you, having attended a Jesuit college, and then taught for 35 years at a Jesuit college, I can tell you that if anything, there was a bias about Jews that we were smarter than we really are. And they thought I was smarter than I really am. But, you know, I tried to disprove that, but I couldn't.
Hey, you got a PhD. You can't be too stupid. Anyway,
Yeah,
thank you
well.
very much. Really appreciate
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
You
Neil.
have my stay in touch.
Yep.
Challenge your biases, and reach out. I'll be sending over some articles I've written, and you're welcome to them. Feel free to share them.
Great, thank you.
Thanks so much, Neil.
Thank you. And if
Thank
you can
you all. Be well. Bye-bye.
Okay, if you can
Bye-bye.
unshare.
Oh yeah. Stop sharing.
And I'm sharing.
There
Here we go. Thank you, because I have to go back to sharing.
Yep.
Okay, first we have Brian Bowers. Brian with us?
Yes, I actually jumped on real late here.
Okie dokie. You have a way clean joke?
Well, way clean joke. I'll try not to swear too much. It's short. So two fish are swimming along and they bump into a wall. And one looks at the other one and says, "Damn."
Okay.
Good one.
Thank you. Michael, here's your lotto ticket. You didn't even have two that match. So sorry.
Me too.
Joe.
Barbara, we should enjoy this day, and we head up as we head into Easter and Passover. We are certainly blessed with some wonderful weather. So all that said, happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you. Keep smiling on ahead. Happy trails to you till we meet again.
Okay.